Hello. Housing, stability, and voting were the focus of this year's State of Black Pittsburgh panel discussion. Leaders from the Urban League of Greater Pittsburgh are here to share highlights from that conversation and what comes next. Plus, the 12th year of the Legacy Arts Project will host Dance Africa Pittsburgh. It's a chance to see dozens of dancers demonstrating the vitality of Black dance in Pittsburgh and beyond. The organizer is here to share details. So pull up a chair and meet us at the corner. Intersection starts right now. Hello, I'm Lisa Smith, the Director of Community Impact at KDKA Plus and the host of Intersections. The Urban League of Greater Pittsburgh has a history of highlighting issues that impact the Black community and highlighting solutions. This year, the State of Black Pittsburgh event centered on two topics: housing and voting. Joining me to share some of that conversation are Carlos T. Carter. He is the president of the Urban League of Greater Pittsburgh, and John Ukinye. He is the advocacy and policy officer, also with the Urban League of Greater Pittsburgh. Welcome, gentlemen, to Intersections.
Thanks for having us.
Welcome back, Carlos.
I know. I know.
Times.
Yeah, always a pleasure.
Yeah. So, you know, the State of Black Pittsburgh, it's kind of an annual thing.
Yes.
Tell us a little bit about what it is so people kind of get an understanding of what actually happens when you guys kind of delve into what's happening in the Black community here locally.
Well, the State of Black Pittsburgh is an opportunity really to talk about, again, what's happening in Pittsburgh, and the whole concept of, to Black people, the State of Black America came through the National Urban League because we realized when presidentials did address, presidents did address, et cetera, it didn't address the needs and priorities of Black people. So it's a way of doing that in a local space. And so eventually we do want to create a State of Black Pittsburgh report as we get funding and solutions and to inform a policy agenda. But this was a way to talk about issues that are important to us, find solutions, and especially housing is so important, it affects all groups, but disproportionately us here, Black and brown people. And voting is critical, right? We have election coming up, and we really need people to get out there, and so we want to engage the community around these two very important issues and find the solutions.
Yeah, so you had like some key stakeholders who were at this panel discussion.
Yes,
yeah.
Very impressive people like Marimba, who's a giant presidency of the Hill District CDC. We had Marsha Grayson, who's the Chief Operating Officer of the Housing Authority of Pittsburgh. With Dr. Clyde Pickett as a moderator. We had a young man from the Urban League, Andre. Okay, I forgot the name of the Lord. He was on the voting panel. We had Miracle from One Hood, and some other folks too, but was a really very engaged group of people. And Khadijah, was it Khadijah Kenner? From, what is it, the
New Pennsylvania Project.
New Pennsylvania Project, okay. Yeah, so some amazing folks. And we tried to be diverse in terms of age and gender within the Black community, because we are not a monolith, we're a diverse group of folks.
Yeah. So you decided on housing and voting. John, why were those the two areas?
Yeah, I mean, we're in a pretty interesting time here in Pittsburgh. One with elections coming up, of course, for the 2024 presidential election. But a lot has happened in Pittsburgh electorally, especially for the last 6 years. So we thought it was very imperative that we highlighted this topic at this year's State of Black Pittsburgh. In terms of housing, Carlos can attest to this, that a big part of the work we do at the Urban League programmatically and in terms of helping the community is through rental assistance and mortgage assistance as well, and mortgage counseling. And it just felt like a natural fit to kind of marry the work that the Urban League is doing with the most important elements that are happening in the broader Pittsburgh area.
Yeah, so you brought up housing. So tell us a little bit about what are some of those trends that we're seeing right now in the Black community. What is the experience in terms of people trying to find a home, buy a home, even rent? What are you seeing?
Carlos?
Yeah, I'd say we're seeing a lot, right? We think there are many challenges. We know there are a lot of challenges, right, in terms of home ownership. And even, you know, rents in Pittsburgh have really, nationally, but in Pittsburgh, they've really gone up exponentially. When you think of people being housing poor, or they have another term for it, but more than 30% of your income, typically up to 30% of your income should go to housing. We have a lot of our folks more than 50%, right? And there's nothing left. So that is certainly a crisis. And I think for our young people, you see more people staying at home longer because they literally can't afford, and it kind of impacts people's ability to achieve the American dream. from a housing perspective, I think we're already 30 percentage points behind the white population in terms of housing, but you have barriers with high interest rates. Access to capital, I think, is certainly a barrier, and even a big barrier in terms of when you think of blight in our communities around, how can I say this, around the fact that, like, I'm losing my thought here. But yeah, just in terms of like issues with clearing titles and things like that, that I know Catapult Pittsburgh got a $3 million grant to help people around that. Those things impact us. So there are many challenges, not a lot to celebrate, but at the Urban League specifically, we do things around home down payment assistance to help people. We do that a lot. We help people with credit scores, counseling, but a lot of times, and also a big part of what we do is moving people to economic self-sufficiency. I've been on here before to talk about how we're really trying to move people to tech, because a lot of black people disproportionately are trapped in a service sector. Not saying it's bad, but a lot of it is bad for economic mobility. And so making sure that we're not left behind with the digital divide. And so we always talk about this notion of people need to budget. Let's face it, some people are doing the best they can with what they have. They need more money, period. And so at the Urban League, we have to be responsible for empowering people to connect the opportunities to upscale around that. So again, the picture does not look good, but we can do something about it.
Yeah. You mentioned employment, and this employment has to tie directly into housing because that's the source, right? What are we seeing? You said you guys are doing some things in that area.
Yes.
Is there enough being done? Are there other things that maybe can be done? Not necessarily by you guys, but by all different sectors.
Well, I think from a policy perspective, we know historically black folks have been the victims literally of redlining and in terms of lending to us, and that those things still exist, that we need to, our policy needs to make it a priority to be investing in black communities, and not in terms of we have folks coming outside that are just buying up the properties, hundreds of properties, and that exacerbates the problems, right? We have all these slumlords where people in there and they're not taking care of the properties, and then the first-time homeowners are a greater challenge, right? You have the higher interest rates, and the housing values are going up, and incomes aren't moving at the same pace. And so we need to address that, because the ability even to get a home is challenged. But even if you're renting, I think people when you're thinking American dream, you're not thinking living in mold-infested places. Our people deserve to have spaces that are worthy of their dignity. And I get tired of people wanting black people to settle for crumbs. We want the whole loaf of bread because we deserve it like everyone else. And so I think the government needs to invest. I like what they were doing in terms of the Home Repairs Act, where Pennsylvania was investing up to $40,000 to help people repair their homes and stay in their homes, which is important. But there wasn't enough money. I think the last time, I think only 200 people may have benefited from it, right? And they had thousands of applications. Oh, wow. And so we need the government to put more money and also continue investing in opportunities to remove financial barriers so that people can take advantage of these higher incomes so they can afford a place that's worth the dignity of raising their families.
Yeah. Well, we're going to take a quick break, but of course we have a lot more to talk with you guys about. And so when we do come back, we'll continue our conversation on the state of Black Pittsburgh and the electoral impact. You're watching Intersections. Welcome back. We're continuing our conversation on the state of Black Pittsburgh with Carlos T. Carter. He's the president and CEO of the Urban League of Greater Pittsburgh, along with John Ukinye, the advocacy and policy officer, again, also with the Urban League of Greater Pittsburgh. So when we left, we were talking about housing, and I know that there's been some interest in what's happening here in Pittsburgh, in Harrisburg. So tell us about the interactions that Urban League has been having with lawmakers in Harrisburg. John?
Yeah, so for the past couple of years, the Urban League has been really trying to reestablish our connections with policymakers across the board, from locally to the state to the federal government. And we've done a lot of work with the state legislators specifically. We have kind of reestablished a connection with the Pennsylvania Legislative Black Caucus, which think of like the Congressional Black Caucus, but here in Pennsylvania. Mm-hmm. And a lot of the work they do, since there's a huge black population out east, they don't really have a lot of interaction with us out west. So the Urban League has kind of helped to build that bridge between what's happening out east with the Pennsylvania Legislative Black Caucus and what we're doing out here. And last year, we went to the K. Leroy Irvis Day of Action held by the Pennsylvania Legislative Black Caucus. Mm-hmm. K. Leroy Irvis was the first black Speaker of the House in Pennsylvania, also from Pittsburgh.
And Urban Leaguer.
And also an Urban Leaguer as well. He was in the Urban League of Pittsburgh way back in the day. So it was a natural fit for us to go back and celebrate his legacy and the work that's continuing to be done, especially now that we have our second black ever Speaker of the House, Joanna McClinton. So it just kind of lines up almost perfectly for us to get back into this work at the time that we have. This year, we had the K-Legal Orvis Day of Action again. This time we sent a bus of people.
We were sponsored.
We were sponsoring a bus, went up to Harrisburg again. We brought a team of very vocal activists and leaders in our community to show them, both show the people we brought and also the people in Harrisburg, the activity that we have in going on in Pittsburgh, that there is a very loud, active, black activist voice that exists in Pittsburgh, and want to show them that we're here, we're paying attention. And we are eager to get to work to fight for all of the black community across the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania.
Yeah. So when you talk about, advocacy, that kind of goes into voting,
Yes.
which obviously this is a voting year. Every year is a voting year, but this is a general election year.
Important, yeah.
And next year will be 60 years since the Voting Rights Act, right? What are we seeing right now in terms of where people are right now, Black people are right now in terms of voting versus how they felt back in 1965? What are we seeing?
Yeah, so the 60-year anniversary is actually something that's highlighted by the National Urban League State of Black America report. It was pretty much the centerpiece of the data they presented. And if you look at that report that came out back in the spring, they look at how we've made a pretty good distance in a lot of the places, not only in voting, but also in the economics as well. But there's still so much work to be done. In many cases, the Civil Rights Act and other similar bills have been rolled back, especially in the last 15, 20 years. So it kind of requires us to sound the alarm once again, really, to fight for these rights that we, in many cases, thought was already a done deal. We were finding ourselves going back not only to the streets, but also into the boardrooms, fighting for diversity and inclusion, going back into the voting booth, making sure that we're electing people that are fighting for the things we care about. And it made it all the more imperative for us to focus on the electoral piece when it came down to the state of Black Pittsburgh this year, because we have that element that's happening nationally of rights being scaled back. But then we also have some pretty staggering numbers. Public Source released an article about a couple years ago that back in 2018, the turnout in Allegheny County was about like 58%, which is okay, it's decent, it kind of tracks nationally. But in terms of the Black community, it was way, way lower. In terms of areas that have a plurality or a large Black population, only Wilkinsburg really had a turnout over 50%. The area with the lowest turnout was McKees Rocks with a 41% Black population. They had a turnout around 38%. And then you had, on the upper end of that spectrum, you had Ben Avon Heights, population of about 400 people. They had 77% turnout, 97% white population. So you're seeing that there's a pretty staggering number shift looking, not even just nationally, but here in Allegheny County. And it just underscores the point even more that we need to do more to make sure that Black people find their voice, not just in other areas, but also and specifically in the voting booth. And there's so many things that are affecting our lives as a community that we need to make sure that we have our finger on the pulse, that we're fighting for the things we care about, and also electing people that will be advancing our causes.
So I want to make sure we talk about some of those topics before we run out of time. So what are people saying? Like, I'm thinking, jobs, inflation, safety, crime, healthcare, racial equality. What are these what we're hearing? And what's been the response, I guess, to what people are saying about what they're looking for from their elected officials?
Well, I think people definitely, especially in the Black community, abortion, I said this in the paper recently, abortion and other topics are important, but people are really looking at the end of the day, do I have food on the table? Can I afford my rent? So I think the economic issues are very paramount, and I think it's important that we do empower the Black community, realize that our vote does matter. Our vote and Black and brown vote does shift elections, and other folks know that, right? And so that we need to realize our power, and that, as I said before, there are three candidates that they say is Trump, Biden, maybe, and a couch, right? And so we need people not to choose the couch and to know that this is a system, whether you like it or not, we need to vote, right? Or I always say our vote is our voice and our voice is our power. And so we can't be fooled or bamboozled that our vote doesn't matter and be apathetic. So I think it's important for politicians and legislators to really translate to people how they can take their vote to the bank and how they can really impact change. And as young people specifically, we need to help people to really become empowered, because I think people are becoming more and more apathetic, and that's what scares me as a leader and as a Black man. And so I want our people to leverage their power. And I want legislators to listen to what our folks have to say by the policies that they create, but we must understand the policy we have. And I love the quote by Alice Walker says that the most common way people lose their power is by believing they don't have any, and we do have power.
Mm-hmm. Well, we're almost out of time, but I do know that you guys, we started out talking about housing, and you have some workshops, right, on
Yes.
Saturdays.
Yes.
Talk a little bit very quickly. The next one is on July 20th.
Yes, so we have, and with our partners, we have housing workshops where basically we work with PHFA and other partners, and we help prepare people for home buying, and through that they qualify for discounts. But more importantly, not only do we educate people, but we also connect them to resources, not just in Urban League from the housing authority, to other ways to get assistance internally and internally and externally. And that's the power of the Urban League, right, is that we can be a gateway to resources, just not about here to the Urban League, but you come there, the value you get is information to help you to remove barriers to be successful and achieve the American dream.
All right. Well, thank you both so much
Yes.
for being here, sharing this information, and we'll definitely have you back to hear the latest.
Thanks.
All right.
Thank you so much.
Thank
Thank
you. And coming up, you have a chance to see a showcase of artistry through dance in Pittsburgh. We'll tell you where. You're watching Intersections. Well, the Legacy Arts Project has been a part of Pittsburgh's artistic scene for 20 years, and this year marks the 12th year they'll showcase performers as part of the Dance Africa Pittsburgh event at the new Hazlitt Theater. Here to share details on what you can expect this year is Erin Perry. She is a choreographer and executive director of the Legacy Arts Project. Welcome to Intersections.
Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. So tell us a little bit about the Legacy Arts Project, what exactly it is. You've been around for 20 years.
Yes. So the Legacy Arts Project was founded in 2004 by Linda Sister Imani Barrett, a Hill District resident, who had the idea of bringing back some of her friends who had been a part of the Pittsburgh Black Theater Dance Ensemble, which was founded in 1969 at the University of Pittsburgh. So she wanted to create a space for folks to be able to gather and experience the cultural richness of the African diaspora through way of drum classes and dance classes. And so 20 years ago she started it, and we've continued it to this day. And up until this day, we actually have at this very moment a summer program that's happening. It's our 10th year of a summer arts camp where we have spaces for youth ages 6 to 13 to experience all different kinds of art, as well as we do a youth employment experience for teens ages 14 to 19. And it's just a very robust experience that we have throughout our community.
Nice, really nice. So here we are, 12 years of the Dance Africa Pittsburgh. And so tell us about what's planned this year. I know you have a theme, Heart to Heart.
Yeah, so this year the theme of Heart to Heart is really looking at how are we able to use art forms as tools of healing and transformation. And the idea of Heart to Heart is really being able to honor our own personal journeys of healing and wellness and doing it in a collective space and using dance as a medium to do so. So this year we'll be celebrating our 12th Dance Africa Pittsburgh, and we're bringing together 11 amazing choreographers who are all Pittsburgh-based artists who are sharing their creative process with the city, with the artists that they're working with, the dancers, as well as the community who is able to come and participate in the event.
Yeah. So, you know, we're looking at some of the drumming too, and drumming is also a big part. It's the dancing and the drumming. Tell me a little bit about that portion of it.
Yeah, so we also, of course, have lots of drumming that'll happen inside of the program. This year we were able to work with an amazing artist by the name of Sini Daffy. He is from Guinea, West Africa. He came to Pittsburgh back in April and worked with our community dance ensemble with the Legacy Arts Project and set a piece of work where we are actually going to be performing drumming ourselves, myself included. And there is also drumming that's happening with other pieces in the performance. One of the choreographers by the name of Kaya Connor is doing a work that features Senegalese drumming and dance. And so it's guaranteed to be an extraordinary experience.
Yeah. And I mentioned earlier that you are also a choreographer.
Yes.
And you're doing a piece.
Yes.
Tell me a little bit about it.
Well, this is actually my first time doing choreography. I've been dancing within our programs since the beginning. We did our first Dance Africa in 2010, and I've been dancing ever since. But this year I was actually inspired to be courageous. You know, we use dance as a form of healing for ourselves, and I know that it was something within me that I wanted to do. And so I was encouraged by one of the musicians who works with us who said, "You can do it." And at first I sort of was reserved and thought maybe I can't, but I actually always wanted to. Yeah. So I used it as just a means for me to step into myself a little bit further. And so I'm excited to be among all of these choreographers who are doing this work and who've done it for years. And I come very humbly, recognizing that it's a labor of love and that a lot of people have put lots of years into their creative process and being able to come into the space as choreographers. And so I'm honored that this is my first experience being able to do so myself.
Oh, that sounds great. That sounds great. And then the other thing is, you have a lot of performers. I mean, we're not talking, there's probably going to be almost 80 or so performers, you said?
Yes, and that's just in one show. So we have two shows, the A show and the B show. Both of them take place on each day. So on Saturday, at 3 o'clock, there's the A show, and at 7 o'clock, the B show. And so each show has about 80 performers. So in total, we have nearly 200 people who are in the show.
Wow, wow. And mostly they're trained here, but they're not all trained. I mean, they're coming from different backgrounds, different
So they're all
levels.
Pittsburgh-based dancers, and they are ranging in ages from children through elders. We honor ourselves as being an intergenerational space, so we recognize that all folks are valued at no matter what age they are. So we're working with a lot of different organizations and choreographers, including Hill Dance Academy Theater, Culture Dance Academy, and Aubrey Luttrell, and all of them are bringing a lot of youth who are going to be able to show the works that they do. And also Kantara Morphus, she was on your show when she did an amazing performance back at the New Hazlitt Theater a few months back, and so she's also going to have her company as a part of this year's event.
Very nice. So we want to just show the details one more time. The 12th Dance Africa Pittsburgh event, and it's again Saturday, July 27th and Sunday, July 28th. And give me those times one more time.
3 p.m. and 7 p.m.
Okay, and there's an A and a B.
Yes, they're an A and a B show, and you can get more information on our website as well as the New Hazlitt Theater website.
And your website is legacyartsproject.org.
Correct, legacyartsproject.org.
All right, sounds great. Thank you so much, Erin, for being with us. We appreciate it.
Thank you, I appreciate the invitation.
And good luck with the show.
Thank you.
Okay. And I'll have my last word when we come back. Home, the place where you can rest, relax, unwind. It's your comfort zone. It's a place where you can call your own, unless it isn't. For many people, having a home is not a given. It's elusive. It's a friend's place or family member's place or a parent's place. But when we talk about the American dream, it many times includes owning a home, which isn't easy, especially when you consider rising home prices, increasing interest rates, and a low inventory of homes for sale, even if you have a job and have money saved. Hopefully, there will be additional resources and tools to help more people achieve their piece of the American dream. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time on Intersections.